The Geology at the Gobbins Cliff Path. Audio descriptive text. This video is an audio description of the Geology at the Gobbins Cliff Path guide. The guide sets out some key information about the coastal walk at Island Magee and its history. It contains 44 pages with a mixture of maps, text and photographs. The recording was produced by Direct Access on behalf of Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust. The Trust is a charity devoted to protecting and enhancing the unique heritage of the Causeway Coast and Glens area. My name is Seamus O'Hara. This recording was done on the 13th of March 2021. Contents. 1. Introduction. 2. Globetrotting at the Gobbins. 3. Geology along the Gobbins Cliff Path. 4. Zeolite mineral examples. 5. Did you know? 6. Influence of geology elsewhere in Mid and East Antrim. 7. Wildlife along the way. 8. Leave no trace. 9. Visitor information and our funders. 1. Introduction. Stretching from City of Derry Airport in County Londonderry to Carrickfergus in County Antrim, the Causeway Coast and Glens area includes some of the most geologically diverse landscapes on Earth. This short guide to the geology of the Gobbins Cliff Path demonstrates why the Gobbins quite rightly takes its seat amongst three areas of outstanding natural beauty, which are Benevena, the Causeway Coast and Antrim Coast and Glens. The area includes Northern Ireland's only World Heritage Site, the Giant's Causeway and Causeway Coast, to provide a world-class experience for those interested in the natural and cultural heritage of the Causeway Coast and Glens area. 60 years after it closed in 1954, visitors to the newly reopened Gobbins Cliff Path at Island Magee can once again walk on the edge of a landscape sculpted by millions of years of geological activity, weathering and erosion. The rich geology and biodiversity along Island Magee's coastline combine with coastal processes at the Gobbins to present a landscape of exceptional scientific, aesthetic, historical and cultural value. We hope this video guide helps explain some of the rock formations and features through which the coastal path winds that you will experience on your visit. We also hope this guide helps explain how the geology of the Gobbins links with the geology of sites in the Causeway Coast and Glens area and partner sites across the globe. Two. Globetrotting at the Gobbins. This chapter starts with a photo of Inishtrahull Island, which contains the oldest rocks in Ireland. Covered in grass with views out to sea, there is a small hut and a small sailing boat by a jetty. Northern Ireland is one of the most geologically diverse places on Earth for an area of its size. Every era of geological history is recorded in the rocks and landscapes found across the north of the island. The oldest rocks in Ireland are found at Inishtrahull Island of the north coast of County Donegal. The gneiss, which is a type of metamorphic rock, dates from around 1,700 million years ago and formed during the Precambrian period, when Ireland was located near the South Pole and was part of a large supercontinent called Rodinia, spelt Rodinia. The Cambrian, Ordovician and Silurian periods followed the Precambrian. From around 545 to 410 million years ago, what is now recognised as Ireland was split into two halves by a new ocean known as Iapetus. Within this ocean, huge volumes of marine sediment accumulated, forming extensive beds of sandstone, shale and mudstone. After many years of expansion, the Lepidus Ocean began to close, resulting in continental collisions which metamorphosized, which means changed by heat and/or pressure, the marine sediments into much harder schists, quartzites and marbles. Further compression of these rocks formed large mountains known as the Caledonian Mountain Range that stretched through present-day Scotland, Scandinavia, North America and Ireland. Remnants of these mountains are formed in the Sperrin Mountains. Where the rocks were exposed to extreme heat and pressure at depth, they formed magma which cooled within the Earth's crust to form granite-type rocks now exposed at the surface in places such as Donegal, Wicklow and Newry. Throughout this period, the continental land masses moved northeast towards the tropics. The guide includes a photograph of the Sperrin Mountains taken from the mountaintop. The captions suggest that the Sperrins is the remnant of the huge Caledonian mountain range, which may have been higher than the Himalayas. The next photo is of the bridge at Cushendun, with red sandstone visible as evidence of hot desert conditions. With the formation of the Caledonian Mountains and closing of the Lepidus Ocean, Ireland experienced a dramatic change in environmental conditions. During the Devonian period, around 400 million years ago, Ireland was located in desert latitudes south of the equator. In these hot continental desert conditions, sandstones formed. Rocks from this period can be seen in the red sandstones in Cushendall and Cushendun. The Devonian period of geological history is notable for increased plant and animal colonization on land and the evolution of many forms of fish and amphibians. The Carboniferous period followed the Devonian, beginning around 350 million years ago. During this period, the desert landscape gradually flooded as global sea levels rose. The change to tropical marine conditions resulted in an explosion of marine life including fish, shellfish and coral reefs. Fossil evidence of this marine life is well preserved in limestone, particularly along the west coast of Ireland. Weathering processes have created karst scenery and features in Carboniferous limestone, for example the spectacular Marble Arch Caves in County Fermanagh. As sea levels fell throughout the Carboniferous period, plants periodically flourished, forming thick deposits of plant remains which were compressed to form coal. Carboniferous coal seams can be seen along the coast at Ballycastle in County Antrim, where small collieries developed in the 19th and early 20th centuries. The guide includes a picture of the interior of North Star Mine in Ballycastle, where coal was mined. Moving into the Permian period around 298 million years ago, the climate returned to hot desert conditions as the land, that now represents Ireland, became locked within a vast continent called Pangaea and moved north of the equator. There are no exposures of rocks from the Permian period in the Causeway, Coast and Glens area. However, evidence from across the globe indicates that a widespread extinction event occurred at the end of the Permian. The cause of this extinction event is still debated. During the Triassic, beginning 250 million years ago, Ireland was still part of Pangaea and lay at the latitude of the Sahara Desert. Evidence of a semi-arid environment is presented in the form of alternating beds of sandstone and mudstone. The best examples of Triassic sandstones are found at Scrabo Quarry in County Down, where trace evidence in the form of footprints of early reptiles can be seen. There is evidence of the development of shallow lagoons and the formation of silt pans during the Triassic. These silt deposits are now mined at Carrickfergus, County Antrim. The guide contains a photo of Scrabo Tower in County Down, built from Triassic sandstone from Scrabo Quarry. It is cylindrical in shape, with coned towers at the top. The entire building is a strong red colour. At the beginning of the Jurassic period, around 200 million years ago, the supercontinent Pangaea began to break up. In Ireland, this period is represented by mudstone and limestone beds which can be seen along the Antrim Coast Road. These rocks are rich in marine fossils, for example, bivalves, ammonites and occasional marine reptiles. Perhaps the most famous fossil is that of the ichthyosaur, spelt Icthyosauр, discovered at Waterloo Beds in Larne. The guide contains a picture of this fossil. The Jurassic is well known as the age of the dinosaurs. However, during this time, the earliest birds also took to the air. At the beginning of the Cretaceous period, 144 million years ago, global sea levels rose dramatically. Much of Europe, from Ireland to the Caucasus Mountains in Russia, were submerged under warm, shallow sea, in which thick deposits of limestone formed, as well as deposits of sandstone, siltstone, and marl. This limestone is displayed in exemplary fashion along the Antrim Coast Road and can be seen at Portmuck, where it forms white limestone cliffs composed almost entirely of the remains of microscopic shells. These limestones are between 70 million years old and 100 million years old. At the Gobbins, this white limestone can be found to the south of the coastal path as you look towards Blackhead. The nearby village of Whitehead derives its name from the limestone cliffs in this region. Blackhead, on the other hand, derives its name from the black basalts which overlie the white limestone. These basalts date from the Paleogene period that was much later. Approximately 75 million years ago, global sea levels fell to reveal a low, rolling, lightly vegetated limestone landscape. The land which forms present-day Ireland was located near the area of southern France today. Approximately 65 million years ago, the continental land masses continued to break up as North America and Europe split apart. This process began around 80 million years ago and continues today. Crustal thinning resulted in the eruption of large volumes of basalt lava. Initially, these eruptions were explosive, creating huge volumes of volcanic ash. This initial violent phase was followed by a period of much reduced volcanic activity, during which the surface of the land weathered to form deep soils. Evidence of these soils is found throughout the Causeway coast and Glens in the form of red bands of laterite rock that divide sequences of basalts laid down by the volcanic eruptions. The upper basalts, which is found above the red laterite, were deposited during the second phase of volcanic activity when huge volumes of basaltic lava flooded the surface of the land. Where this lava pooled within flooded valleys, it cooled and contracted to form the extremely regular columns, best seen at the Giant's Causeway. You might even spot some columnar basalt alongside the Gobbins Cliff Path. It is this Paleogene period of volcanic activity which is responsible for forming the basalt cliffs around which the Gobbins Cliff Path has been engineered. The guide contains pictures of granite boulders in the Mourne Mountains and basalt along the Gobbins Cliff Path. Further south in Northern Ireland, igneous activity of a different sort was taking place during the Paleogene period. Here the magma never reached the surface, but instead remained below where it cooled and hardened. In some cases, such as in the Mourne Mountains, this formed a large mass of igneous rock called granite and followed millions of years of erosion. It is now exposed at the surface. In another place, such as the Ring of Gullion and on the Cooley Peninsula in County Louth, it formed large-scale ring-shaped features known as ring dikes that gave these areas their characteristic landscapes. Moving into the present geological period, the Quaternary, which began 1.8 million years ago, huge ice sheets spread south from polar latitudes. This ice acted like sandpaper on the land, sculpting the landforms and landscapes that we recognise as Northern Ireland. Much of the scenery we see today dates from the end of the last significant glaciation known as the Ice Age, approximately 15,000 years ago. In fact, because an ice age is defined as any period when there is ice at either the North or South Pole, we are still technically in an ice age. As ice Retreated from Ireland, it deposited huge volumes of material from fine sands and gravels through to huge boulders. Landslips occur frequently along stretches of the Antrim Coast Road as the present-day landscape attempts to adjust to modern environmental conditions. The next few pages detail the types of rock formations found across Northern Ireland. Within the Causeway coast and Glens, the map illustrates the predominance of different kinds of basalts in the area, with chalk and flint around Ballymoney and Ballycastle. Mudstone mainly features around Limavady. Three. Geology along the Gobbins Cliff Path. This section starts with a map illustrating the key geological exposures along the Gobbins Cliff Path. Heading north or left to right if looking at the map, the key points are Cretaceous white limestone in Hills Port, amygdaloidal basalt near Wise's Eye, fault-formed cave and fault breccia seen in Sandy Cave. Volcanic ash layers can be seen between Sandy Cave and Manowar. Differential weathering seen near the gallery. Landslip. The dramatic Gobbins Cliff Path winds around almost vertical basalt sea cliffs up to 60 metres in height. Basalt is a common extrusive igneous rock with a fine crystal structure. An extrusive igneous rock forms as magma erupts at the surface. Basalt usually forms when lava cools relatively quickly at the Earth's surface, creating small interlocking crystals that are not visible with the naked eye. When magma, which is lava which has not reached the surface, cools more slowly within the Earth's crust, it tends to produce rocks with coarse crystals such as dolerite, spelt D-O-L-E-R-I-T-E, and gabbro, spelt G-A-B-B-R-O. The chemical composition of these rocks is very similar to basalt. However, the slower cooling allows large crystals to develop and gives the rocks a different appearance. The basalt that gives rise to the dramatic cliffs on the east coast of Island Magee are relatively common in North Antrim. They formed as part of a series of huge fissure eruptions that created the impressive Antrim Plateau, which extends from Cave Hill outside Belfast to Benevena Mountain on the northwest of County Londonderry. Fissure eruptions simply mean that as seafloor spreading continues at the mid-Atlantic ridge, large cracks opened in the Earth's surface, and through these cracks, lava flooded onto the surface. Near the Gobbins, there is evidence for the type of landscape that existed before these basalt rocks came to dominate. At the south end of the site, older marine sedimentary rocks are visible. These rocks are some 200 million years old and provide us with evidence of the climate and landscape during the late Triassic and early Jurassic periods, when this part of Ireland would have been located under a warm, shallow sea. The impressive ichthyosaur fossil found at Waterloo, Barcelona, dates from this period. Overlying the older marine sediments is younger Cretaceous limestone. These rocks formed over 70 million years ago when this part of Ireland was located under a warm, shallow chalk sea, rich in marine life, which upon death formed thick deposits of calcite from the remains of marine organisms. Exposures of this limestone can be seen to the south of the site and in the vicinity of Portmuck Bay. The guide contains a photo of the bay. The same limestone can be seen along the Antrim Coast Road between Larne and Carnlough. Whilst the basalt that overlays the Cretaceous white limestone at the Gobbins is abundant across County Antrim, the basalt at Hillsport near the start of the paths is quite special. It is what's known as amygdaloidal, spelt A-M-Y-G-D-A-L-O-I-D-A-L, basalt. When lava cools, gases are trapped, forming small bubbles within the rock. If there is sufficient gas, this creates relatively large bubbles, or vesicles, within basalt rock. This is particularly common at the top of a lava flow because gas bubbles will always rise and become trapped by the rapidly solidified top surface of the lava flow. Over time, the small vesicles are filled with minerals precipitated from fluid within the rock forming amygdales. Amygdales are simply vesicles that are filled with minerals. At the Gobbins, the vesicles in the basalt have been filled with an impressive array of silica-based zeolite minerals, one of which, Gobbinsite, is named after the location where it was first discovered. None of the minerals are economically valuable. The guide includes a photograph that illustrates the speckled appearance of local basalt. How zeolites are formed at the Gobbins. First, gas bubbles form in cooling lava where they become trapped, forming vesicles which is a bubbly texture. Second, as the top of the lava flows, the bubbles become elongate. This forms flow or tube zeolites. This is one of the best locations in Ireland to see these. Third, over time, minerals from the surrounding rock have precipitated out and occupied these gas bubbles, giving a speckled appearance. These white minerals are known as zeolites. Four, zeolite mineral examples. Examples of some zeolite minerals found in the amygdaloidal basalt at the Gobbins and elsewhere in County Antrim are illustrated in the guide. Zeolite is a term used for a particular grouping of minerals found as amygdales. They can tell us information about eruptions such as the depth of a lava pile and the temperature. Gobbinite is named after the Gobbins, where it was first recorded as a new mineral in 1982. This mineral is recorded at the Giant's Causeway and in Mount St. Helier, Canada. It is chalky white to brown colour and similar in hardness to steel. Gamelanite is an uncommon mineral first recorded by David Brewster from the University of Tübingen, Germany in 1825, and named after Christian Gamelin, a German chemist and mineralogist. Gamelanite is known to occur at the Gobbins and Little Deer Park Quarry in Glenarm. Outside Northern Ireland it is recorded in Italy, Kazakhstan, Australia and the USA. Gamelanite is orange to pink in colour and similar in hardness to steel. Analcime occurs frequently in basalt. It is usually white or colourless and similar in hardness of cobalt. Shabazite is quite common mineral, very closely related to gamelanite. It is peach or white in colour and similar in hardness to steel. Calcite is a rare mineral, first recorded in Oregon, USA in 1975. It is known to occur in the USA, Canada, Russia and Iceland. It is colourless or white and similar in hardness to calcium. Gunnardite is a common mineral first recorded in France in 1896. It is known to occur at sites across the globe. Gonodite is white in colour and similar in hardness to enamel. Heulandite is a common mineral, known to occur across the globe. It is white to beige in colour and similar in hardness to platinum. Levain is the uncommon mineral, only found in cavities within basalt. It was first recorded in rocks from the Faroe Islands, but is known to occur at sites across the globe. It is colourless or white and similar in hardness to iron. Mesolite is relatively uncommon, white or colourless needle-like mineral found across the globe. It is similar in hardness to volcanic glass known as obsidian. Spectacular needle sprays are found in Skookumchuck Dam, Washington State, USA. Five. Did you know that a number of minerals have been discovered in and take their name from locations throughout County Antrim, including Scotite, which was first discovered at Scott Hill above Ballygally by C.E. Tilley in 1929. It is a clear, colourless, prismatic mineral which formed when solutions from a nearby magma source enriched limestone with silica, magnesia, iron oxides and alumina. Lornite was first discovered at Scott Hill by C.E. Tilley in the 1920s. It is white to grey in colour and has a similar hardness to titanium and uranium. Portlandite is a mineral first identified in its natural form at Scott Hill. This mineral received its name as it formed during the production of Portland cement. Gamelanite was identified in 1960 by George Walker, a mineralogist and geochemist from Northern Ireland. Garran Plateau is identified as the international type locality for this mineral. Gobbinite was first recorded as a new mineral by Rab Nawaz at the Department of Geology at the Ulster Museum and John F. Malone. At the beginning of the Paleogene, basaltic lava flooded onto the Cretaceous Ulster White Limestone. The upper surfaces cooled quite rapidly on contact with air and/or water. This caused rapid degasification of the lava, forming a thin layer of volcanic ash at the top of the flow. Where this is weathered, it forms a thin red layer between lava flows. These thin red layers can be seen all along the Gobbins Cliff Path. Over time, further basalt lava flows buried the preceding layers of basalt and thin volcanic ash layers. The cliffs at the Gobbins are made up of multiple flows of basalt divided by thin layers of volcanic ash. The volcanic ash layers are less resistant to erosion than the more solid basalt. This means different parts of the cliff face erode at different rates. A thick deposit of weathered volcanic ash has been eroded just above present-day sea level. This forms much of the surface over which the Gobbins Cliff winds today. If you see red rock beneath your feet on the cliff sections, you can be sure this marks the boundary between one flow of lava and the next. The distinctive stepped appearance of the coastline is caused by different rates of erosion both between and within lava flows. All basalts at the Gobbins belong to the lower Paleogene basalt series in Northern Ireland. At some points along the path, you can easily spot where individual basalt lava flows have been exposed to weathering and coastal erosion. Wave erosion has been more effective at different levels within each lava flow. This probably reflects the rate at which the lava is cooled. At the top and bottom of each flow, hot lava came into contact with the air and cooler rocks. This resulted in more rapid cooling and a finer crystal structure, whilst the basalt in between took longer to cool and has a larger crystal structure and weathers more quickly. When you see distinct banding like this, it is known as differential weathering. There are very few places along the coastline where visitors can see such a spectacular cross-section within a fault-formed cave. As this section of the cliff faulted, the two basalt surfaces were exposed to extreme fictional forces that created a thick bed of fault breccia, which is more easily eroded by the sea. Breccia is a name given to broken rock fragments held together by some form of matrix. In this case, this has been formed due to tectonic activity. The nature of the composition of fault breccias make it relatively easy to weather and erode. Global sea levels have risen and fallen many times throughout history. Following the last glaciation of Ireland, about 13,000 years ago, sea levels rose rapidly and were once much higher than they are now. However, as the weight of the ice was removed from the land, it started to rise through a process known as isostatic rebound. This means that sea levels fell relative to the land. The northern half of Ireland is actually still rising very slowly today. At some stage in the past, sections of the Gobbins Cliffs have faulted. Two faces of basalt have moved past each other and the extreme forces have shattered the basalt to form fault breccia. This is quite a brittle rock and less resistant to erosion. In the past, when sea levels were higher, wave action exploited the weakness of this fault, removing rock to form a cave. Rounded clasts or boulders within the cave indicate sea levels were once much higher. The sea is now around 3 meters below the level of the cave today. If you go inside the cave and look at the ceiling, you can see up to 1 meter of fault breccia. This is a very distinctive band or rock in the ceiling of the cave. It indicates the line of the fault within the cliff. The guide contains an aerial image of the Gobbins Cliffs photographed from a helicopter as part of the Northern Ireland Environment Agency's regular assessment of areas of special scientific interest. The Gobbins Cliffs are designated as an area of special scientific interest for their scientifically important geology and wildlife. This image shows significant rockfall or debris flow near the end of the path. This rockfall is likely to have taken place quite a while ago. It tells a lot about the history of this area. Towards the end of the last glaciation, huge ice sheets were retreating and melting. As they melted, sea levels rose significantly, and the newly exposed basalt sea cliffs were subject to coastal erosion. This oversteepened many cliff hang, this stretch of coast creating instability and resulting in insignificant rockfalls. Where the toes of these rockfalls are subject to coastal erosion today, slope failures can still be very active. The Gobbins Cliff Path has been engineered to meander around this rockfall. Whilst sea levels initially rose at the end of the last glaciation, they have since fallen. When the weight of ice was removed from the land, it began to rise up relative to sea level. This has left many coastal erosion features, such as caves, stranded higher up in the cliff. Six. Influence of geology elsewhere in Mid and East Antrim. The guide shows a picture of Carrickfergus Castle with a range of sailing and motorboats in the harbour to the front of the castle. To the south of the Gobbins lays the town of Carrickfergus with its famous castle. The castle is an icon in the local landscape, and its prominent defence position along the coastline is thanks to the underlying geology. Around 55 million years ago, during the Paleogene period, magma was forced into the existing mudstone rock. This formed a Dolomite intrusion. The magma baked the mudstone, making it harder than normal. This baked mudstone and Dolomite are more resistant to erosion than the surrounding rock. That is why the land on which Carrickfergus Castle is built juts out to sea. The castle itself was built using local basalt by John de Courcy in the 1180s. Cranny Falls. Carnlough village has a long history of limestone quarrying. Although this practice has all but disappeared, the remains of this industry are easy to see. It is possible to walk inland from the village along a path that was once an old railway used to transport quarried limestone to the harbour. This path is known as the Mineral Path and leads up to Cranny Falls, illustrated in the guide with a photo. This mix of dramatic natural landscape and industrial engineering can be attributed to the geology in the area. Thick layers of Ulster white limestone formed during the Cretaceous period when the area was underneath a warm, shallow sea. This limestone was later covered by basalt lava which flooded the surface as the Atlantic Ocean began to open. Over millions of years, erosion has exposed some of this limestone. Cranny Falls demonstrates the tough nature of basalt. As other rock types have eroded with the flow of the Carnlough River, the tough basalt has not eroded at the same rate. This has resulted in a dramatic change in height of the river, forming a waterfall. Just outside the village of Bruchshane, Slemish Mountain is an excellent example of a volcanic plug, which means the root of an ancient volcano. Following millions of years hidden beneath the landscape, the volcanic plug has been exposed by weathering and erosion and now stands proudly as the most dominant feature in the surrounding countryside. This ancient volcano would have been active around 60 million years ago when Europe and North America split apart and formed as molten rock, or magma to force its way upwards through the existing rocks. Slemish Mountain is just one of a network of sites in the area that tells the story of volcanic activity during the early part of the Paleogene period. Whilst such activity ceased millions of years ago, the legacy of these dramatic earth processes are still clearly visible in the landscape. Sites that began to form at the same time as Slemish include the cliffs at the Gobbins Cliff Path, the Giant's Causeway, and the Causeway Coast World Heritage Site, the distinctive Benevena Mountain, Carrick-a-Reid, the Ring of Gullion, and the Mourne Mountains. 7. Wildlife along the way. While we would find it difficult to live among the crashing waves and howling winds at the Gobbins, many birds happily make homes on the perches and in the crevices of the cliffs. The cliffs, which can stretch up to 60 metres in places, are home to important sea-breeding colonies. The crashing waves and steep-sided cliffs mean that birds such as kittiwakes and razorbills have colonised and thrived here, while other birds such as cormorant, shag and Atlantic puffin can also be spotted gliding here. Nesting season for most of these breeding birds is May to August, although some species such as black guillemot and fulmar will be present at the breeding site earlier in the year. As the young mature, some, such as kittiwake and fulmar, take flight. Others, such as young guillemot, razorbill and puffin, simply throw themselves from the nest site to join the parent birds on the sea below. The guide has several photos including kittiwake, birds with a white head and body, grey back, grey wings, tipped solid black and a yellow bill. Razorbills are medium-sized seabirds. It is black above and white below. It has a thick black beak which is deep and blunt. Cormorants and shags are medium to large birds with dark feathers. The bill is long, thin and hooked. Their feet have webbing between all four toes. Herring gulls have a grey back and upper wings with white heads and underparts. The wing tips are black with white spots known as murs. Bills are usually yellow with a red spot. Puffins with a white body and black wings have distinctive orange beaks and webbed feet. Guillemots have distinctly white bellies with thick bills. Peregrine falcons have a blue-grey back, barred white underparts, and a black head. Fulmars are white birds with a grey and yellow beak. Eider ducks can be found with black and white plumage and green nape combined with a large, wedge-shaped bill. Rock pipit are small birds with streaked greyish-brown underparts and buff underparts. Manx shearwater birds look like a flying cross, with wings held at right angles to the body, and it changes from black to white as the black upper parts and white undersides are alternately exposed as it travels low over the sea. Gannets are large white birds with yellowish heads, black tipped wings, and long bills. Apart from birds, the following can be found. Common lobster with a long body and tail bluish in colour. Cod are a dark spotted fish with 3 dorsal fins, 2 anal fins, and a chin barbel. It varies in colour from greenish or greyish to brown or blackish, though it may also be dull to bright red. Dogfish have a long, slim body which is tan or light brown and covered in small dark spots, and skin is very rough to the touch. The underside is light grey to white in colour. The mouth is set quite far back on the underside of the body, and nasal grooves reach the mouth. 2 dorsal fins are set far back on the body, and pectoral fins are large and triangular. Limpets are low, conical shells broadly open beneath that grip to a surface. Common dolphins have a dark black skin and the belly is white, while on each side is an hourglass pattern coloured light grey in front and a darker grey at the back. Although much of the coast is exposed, bare, stone sun plants have established themselves, especially in the higher parts and scree slopes. The most common species in the area is the grass, red fescue, while sea campion, kidney vetch and thrift also make an appearance. Pink thrift are round clusters of pink to lavender flowers borne atop slender stalks that rise high above the foliage. Red fescue is a fine bladed grass with medium to dark green colour. Kidney vetch has narrow leaves with yellow-white flowers in dense round clusters. Sea campion have bilobed petals with flowers in pure white or white with a hint of pink or mauve. Eight. Leave no trace. In order to minimize your social and environmental impacts on the outdoors, please follow the principles of Leave No Trace. Leave No Trace is an outdoor ethics educational program designed to promote and inspire responsible outdoor recreation through education, research and partnerships. Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust supports the 7 principles of Leave No Trace. 1. Plan ahead and prepare. 2. Be considerate of others. 3. Respect farm animals and wildlife. 4. Travel and camp on durable ground, only in designated camping areas. 5. Leave what you find. 6. Dispose of waste properly. 7. Minimize the effects of fire. For more information, please visit www.leavenotraceireland.org. Practicing a Leave No Trace ethic is very simple. Make it hard for others to see or hear you and leave no trace of your visit. 9. Visitor information and our funders. For visitor information, the Gobbins Visitor Centre can be found at Middle Road, Islandmagee, BT 403SX. Telephone 028 933 72318 or online at www.thegobbinscliffpath.com. This video is part of Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust's ongoing work to promote the special qualities and heritage of our protected landscapes. The publication and further information can be found at ccght.org. Follow us on Facebook at Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust or Twitter at ccght. The following logos are on the screen. Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust in red with 2 ferns. Antrim Coast and Glens Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty logo illustrating cliffs by the sea. Benevena Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty logo featuring a building on a cliff face. Causeway Coast Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty logo featuring a duck on the coast. We are grateful to our funders who are Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs logo, Northern Ireland Environment Agency logo with the E illustrating land, sky and sea, Causeway Coast and Glens Borough Council logo, Mid and East Antrim Borough Council logo, Tourism Northern Ireland logo with a red and white shamrock on a green background. A special thanks for supporting these videos to the Department for Communities logo in English, Irish and Ulster Scots, Heritage Fund logo illustrating fingers crossed. This marks the end of this recording. Thank you.